I have seen farmers growing crops under adapted systems, even low-cost systems, and they are able to send the kids to school. They are able to pay for a better healthcare services, and they are able to buy better and more food. It's possible. And being in El Salvador, I have seen farmers that they prefer to continue working in the farm, invest, expand.
Welcome to the Vertical Farming Podcast, weekly conversations with fascinating CEOs, founders, and AgTech visionaries. Join us every week as we dive deep into the world of vertical farming with your host, Harry Duran.
Vertical Farming Podcast Season 2, welcome back. If this is your first time listening, I'm so honored that you chose this podcast and this specific episode to enter the world of the Vertical Farming Podcast. It's the show where I interview fascinating CEOs, founders of the leading vertical farming companies from around the world. My name is Harry Duran, and in case you missed last week's show, I had a great conversation. The first with a not specifically founder of a vertical farming company, but actually someone who has a bunch of different skill sets. It's Kyle Barnett, and he's the founder of a site called Ponic Jobs and the co-host of the Crop Talk podcast. We have a wide-ranging conversation on all things hydroponics and all the different interests that Kyle has. It's been a very well-received episode, so make sure you check that one out if you haven't listened to it. This week, I speak to Melvin Medina. He's the agricultural officer at FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. This episode is brought to you by Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. If you're looking for a greenhouse solution that will suit your specific climate and growing goals, then talk to an expert from Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. Ceres combines passive solar concepts, innovative climate control technologies, and customized grow systems to ensure that their growers are yielding the highest quality product year-round for the lowest operational cost. Visit Ceres Greenhouse Solutions, that's CERES, greenhousesolutions.com to learn more. FAO is an organization that is striving for zero hunger, a sustainable planet, and a future of food for all. We talk about Melvin's passion for horticulture, the numerous roles Melvin has had in the AgTech industry, and the impactful work he's done in Jamaica, Tanzania, Cambodia, and Italy. Just to name some of the few places he's been, it's a virtual tour around the globe in this episode. We touch on specific projects he and his team have worked on throughout the years, and the message Melvin would like to leave about the future of AgTech and vertical farming. I learned a lot about FAO and all the good things that they're doing in this sector, and fascinating and inspiring to hear Melvin's journey. So pay attention. There's a lot of great takeaways from this episode. By the way, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Vertical Farming Weekly newsletter for weekly updates on all things happening in the world of vertical farming, and there you'll also be notified when new episodes are available. Melvin Medina, Agricultural Officer at FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Thank you for joining us on the Vertical Farming Podcast.
Well, thanks to you for inviting me and be part of this movement. Thank you.
I'm wondering if you have listened to podcasts or if it's something that you've been using to consume or learn about content recently.
Yes, actually, I have here listened to some of the contributions from other colleagues in the past. And yes, not all of them, but
yeah. We were talking a little bit about how sometimes you discover these things after the fact, but we both born in El Salvador, which is sometimes small world. But I'm interested in just going back, winding the clock back a little bit. When you were in high school and university, did you see yourself working in this industry back then? Were those things that were of interest to you, like this topic about food and agriculture?
Yes. Well, actually, I studied in the Pan American School for Agriculture, Zamorano, in Honduras.
Okay.
Where I did my 2 degrees. One is agronomist, and the other one was the agricultural engineering, which is the equivalent to the bachelor degree.
Yeah.
And since the beginning, I I was pretty much interested in the horticulture, not much in the animal science or extensive crops, but I really liked the horticulture, especially of vegetables, and this is how I became, let's say, more interested on this type of crops. But then, fortunately, after graduation, I got a job in this area of work.
Do you remember where that passion or that interest or that curiosity for horticulture began?
Yes, well, actually, I liked the maybe the fact that these type of crops are short crop cycle, and these type of crops they have a lot of they are affected by many pests and diseases, and so it was a challenge for farmers to be able to produce vegetables, especially in tropical areas. Because I was studying in Honduras, but then I went back to El Salvador,
Mm-hmm.
and being in a tropical country with 6 months of rain, it was challenging to be able to produce year round. And but then I discovered the world of protected cultivation systems, where in the tropics, if you know how to adapt the system, you can produce year round. Where I mean, like with higher yields and less problems compared to the open field systems.
And what were some of the early technologies or systems that you started working with where you saw the potential for what was possible in controlled agriculture systems?
Yeah, well, I got a job in this farm, which was the most, let's say, advanced farm in the country at that time, and we were growing fruits and vegetables. There were around 100 hectares for pineapples, but also mango and avocado. And I was in charge of for the production and packaging of vegetables. So this was my first job, and
Was that the job at Fusades?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, that was the Salvadoran Foundation for Economic and Social Development.
Okay.
And well, after a few months, I realized that growing in the open field, we used to have 20 hectares under open field for vegetables with crops like sweet corn, watermelons, green beans, melons, and then I was also in charge for 1 hectare of greenhouses where tomatoes, bell peppers, and lettuce were cultivated using soilless culture. So
Okay.
that was my first contact with the soil-free systems, and I had the opportunity to see the differences between open field and protected cultivation systems in terms of quality, efficiency, and the production levels.
Did you notice anything different in terms of the taste as well of the vegetables or the varieties you could create?
Yeah, well, the I would say more the differences that I saw was in more related to first efficiency in the use of water and
Mm-hmm.
fertilizers
Okay.
compared to the open field, but also in the efficiency of controlling pests and diseases. Because with the plastic, with the nets, we used to spray much less than in the open fields, which this gives you a reduction in the use of chemical pesticides and increase the efficiency in the biological control agents. In terms of quality, yes, because I was also in charge of the packing of these vegetables, and we used to supply supermarkets. And most of the rejections came from the open field products.
Mm-hmm. Makes
So
sense.
yeah, so the one of the main differences was in terms of quality, because the up to 95% of the produce coming from protected cultivation system was accepted by the market, and this was one of the main reasons.
What's the percentage for open field?
What I can tell you is that 80% of the total rejections was coming from the produce cultivated in open fields.
And then from there, you started. Can you tell us about how you made the transition to starting to work at Fintrac? And for the listener as well, explain what the organization is.
Yes, before that, I established and installed my own greenhouses to produce tomato and sweet pepper in low-cost greenhouse systems using local materials. So actually, and I started to produce and sell as a private business. So I was really becoming a farmer. And after few crop cycles, I got a visit from a person from Fintrac, which is a company implementing projects based in Washington, D.C. So they were implementing this project in El Salvador after the earthquakes in 2001, and they asked me if I was willing to help them um, to do or to replicate what I was doing in my farm, but with the small scale farmers in different locations in El Salvador. And something came to me and I said, yes, of course, this is what I want to do. I want to share my knowledge. I want to share my experiences. And there is where I started to work with them. So I used to travel to different locations in El Salvador.
Do you know how they found you?
Well, they were looking for advanced farmers, and they found me because El Salvador is a small country.
Yeah, yeah.
They offered me this job that at the beginning was part-time, but then because of the requirement of providing technical assistance to farmers from the construction to harvest, going through the whole production process, needed an agronomist to visit them and provide technical assistance, then I was hired full time.
And you were there for how long? 3 years?
No, well, actually, with the company, I worked with them 15 years in total, but in El
Okay.
Salvador it was from 2002 to 2005 because then they got a new project in Jamaica, which
Yeah.
was called the Jamaica Recovery Program after hurricane. Don't remember exactly the name of that hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2005, I was moved to Jamaica to replicate what we were doing in El Salvador. And it was really a very good experience because we were establishing the first greenhouses in Jamaica.
Wow.
Yes, so we selected.
What was the most surprising thing for you when you arrived in Jamaica? I know there could be similarities, but I'm wondering what was the most surprising thing for you when you arrived?
Well, it was my first time out of my country, and I have to say that I didn't speak English. So when I when you arriving in Jamaica without speaking English was challenging. But when they
Yeah.
offered me a translator, and I say no, this is my opportunity to learn English. And so
Mm.
after a few months, I was speaking English with a Jamaican accent. And well, it's not the best place to learn English
Yeah.
because of the local dialect. But it was good. It was good. I mean, it was surprising the prices, for example, for the products for 1 kilo of tomato, 1 kilo of sweet pepper of lettuce, comparing to the prices in El Salvador, it was extremely high. And we had a good experience because, well, good in 2005, we got 2 or 3 tropical storms and I think one hurricane again. And the farmers who were having something to sell were all farmers growing crops in the greenhouses.
Wow.
So the rest of the country was totally destroyed in the open field. And that helped it to have a bigger impact because then everybody wants to have a greenhouse. And if you see now my farmers, the ones that I was providing technical assistance, the first ones are the leads now in the country. They are all providing technical assistance, trainings, and not only in Jamaica, but also in the Caribbean. So now you can find maybe more than 300 greenhouses in the country.
Well, I'm wondering what type of challenges or differences in construction you have to take into account for when you're building a greenhouse in an environment that is susceptible to hurricanes. I wonder if you need to make something a little different than you would in a place that doesn't get them.
No, definitely. We were at the beginning using wood because we believed that the wood was going to be the cheapest type of material for constructing the greenhouses, but this material was imported. So it was almost at the same price of metal in frames.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things that we learned. And actually, then was the discussion about the design, which is the best design for Jamaica, for, against hurricane. They wanted to have a hurricane proof, but it doesn't exist really. What you have to do is just to have some preventative measures, like removing the plastic, removing the nets, because it's better to lose the crop, but not to lose the structure.
A good point.
But if you don't remove that, then you're going to lose everything. And we had some experiences, and I have some reports that because after I went there a couple of years after to do an assessment, and I could see that after a hurricane, some of the wooden structures were still standing up, and some of the metal imported from Israel were totally destroyed. So it was about what to do and when to do these preventative measures.
It must have been a good feeling for you, and even now, as you look back, to see the impact that you had. Because when you arrived, there was nothing like that there, and now you've created a whole ecosystem of people who are learned from you and now are passing on what they learned from you onto the next generation. So, it must be a good feeling to see how your legacy is now lived on in Jamaica.
No, definitely. Just to give an example, right now in FAO, we have a project which is going to be implemented in 4 different islands in the Caribbean. And it's going to be on protected cultivation systems, the small islands. And one of the international consultants that we are going to use is one of my first farmers in Jamaica. It's because he is the best. I mean, he has been traveling around the region, and I must say he's really good.
So can you talk maybe about one of the other projects you worked on at Fintrac after you started to move away from the work you were doing in Jamaica?
Yes, after Jamaica, I got this call to go to Tanzania. And Tanzania is an amazing place with huge potential to grow vegetables because of the altitude above sea level in some areas in the country. It's a huge country, but so the Fintrac got this project, and they called me to go and do an assessment and see the potential to establish again low-cost greenhouses. And then we established 10 different locations for small-scale farmers, and they started to grow slowly, not as fast as in Jamaica, because Jamaica farmers they have more funds and they have more money to invest than the farmers in Tanzania. And one of the main challenges is to have enough funds for invest in these type of systems. But yes, it has been growing. One of the main issues in Tanzania was the market, transportation in general, because the areas where we were growing the crops were maybe 6 hours driving to the main markets in the cities. So we were not prepared for these type of issues. But at the end of the day, we consolidated with the open field farmers, because this program was not only in greenhouses but also open field. So there was a lot of work in terms of marketing. Then I got another call to go to Cambodia, and I stayed 6 years in Cambodia. But in Cambodia was totally different,
Wow.
and it was good because I was going like too specialized in the greenhouses and protected cultivation systems. But in Cambodia, it was totally the opposite. It was everything in the open field, in a very difficult environment around the Tonle Sap lake, where you are at sea level, heat, high humidity, high
Hmm.
temperatures all year round. So we were not able to do any greenhouse there. So it was everything about open field systems, which really helped me to go back to the basics, to see a lot of different experiences with many different crops, and let's say stop for a while on these greenhouse and systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about all the experiences you've had? Because, it must have been something, at least El Salvador to Jamaica, there's still a bit of the Caribbean, like some of the, maybe, the culture is, some overlap, not too much. But then when you go to places, now you go to Tanzania and now you're going to Cambodia. Was it a bit of a culture shock for you, or did you have time to, get a feel for what the culture was like in these different places?
No, definitely the culture is totally different. I mean, I must say that, I have enjoyed working in Tanzania as well as in Cambodia, just like they're different culture. Cambodia, for example, everything is fresh. Marketing is not an issue because there's a lot of food available, and this is part of their culture. They like to eat fresh food, fresh vegetables, and this is something that I realized when I was there, coming from Tanzania, where food in some places and it's not available. In some areas, I remember when I was in some very remote areas where you can travel 3 hours without you don't see any house, any restaurant, or anywhere to eat. And
Wow.
you still drive and drive and drive, and you can't see anything, just maybe wild animals. But Cambodia was totally different. As a population is higher than, I mean, more, the population is, the density is higher than in countries like Tanzania. So you find many places, restaurants, and everyone is cooking food because they like to eat a lot of fresh food. So that makes farmers to sell almost everything they produce at the farm gate. And that was one of the main impacts I got from one country to another. And the different types of vegetables. Yeah.
Did you have any opportunities to do any sightseeing in Cambodia? And I know there's a lot of beautiful temples there as well, and it's one of the places that's on my list to visit someday.
Definitely. I mean, I was living in Siem Reap, 5 kilometers from Angkor Wat, from the Angkor temples, and it's amazing, really. I can tell
Yeah.
you. Yeah, and also the people is just amazing, friendly. My daughter was born there, and we had
Wow.
very good friends, schools. The price, the cost of living is very low compared to other countries. No, it's a beautiful place, really. Yeah, a lot of places to discover, and I guess the most important is the people. Very nice, very friendly, and that makes you really feel good, especially when you are with your family. And right now we are thinking about going back to visit some of the friends that we left there.
Can you talk a little bit because about the challenges or the adventures of raising and having a family while you're doing all these traveling, all these different countries? Like when you're solo, obviously it sounds very exotic. You just throw a backpack on and you can just travel the world. But I'm wondering how you thought about that. And I imagine it's a conversation you had early on in your relationship, but what were some of the challenges, if there were any, about raising a family and then being in these different locations all the time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I arrived in Cambodia, I was alone. My wife and my son were in Spain. You can imagine being in Spain and Cambodia, there's a huge difference. And so when I told them that I was going to go to Cambodia, everybody was saying, "So why you are going there?" But then when I arrived there, I mean, it's one of the most peaceful places that you can be safe. And so then I told my wife, "Okay, come with me, you will see it." And then she came, she saw the environment, she loved it. She's a Buddhist, so Buddhist, being a Buddhist in a
Oh, that
Buddhist
helps.
country, yeah. But I must say that she's very open. She likes to travel, and she is very easy to adapt, like myself. And then our kids are the same. I must say they are very easy to adapt. Now we are in Italy. We have been here 3 years. This is my fourth year in Rome, and yeah, we are very easy to adapt. And I guess our kids are the same.
I think what's fascinating and really interesting is when kids see their parents or are raised in an environment where they're introduced to so many different cultures, they automatically assume that this is how families are and this is what life is, and they're open to new possibilities. And it feels like you're almost teaching them that it's great and it's nice to have a sense of adventure in life and to just, and be open to new possibilities. And I imagine, I don't know if you're seeing that already in them. I don't know how old they are. I think your experiences, I'm pretty sure, have shown them.
No, definitely. For example, my son last year, he asked me, "How long are we going to stay in Rome, in Italy? And where are we going to go after?"
That's very nice. And so now that the timeline gets us into you connecting with the group at FAO, so did they find you or did you find them?
No, I applied for a position in Rome. Well, actually, I applied to 2 or 3 times, and I think the third time I got the interview and I got the position. It was a long process, but what I wanted to really do it was, instead of being in one place helping farmers, let's say, or assisting farmers in one location at a time, my vision or my objective was to be in a place or in a company organization where I could reach more people. And FAO has provided me the opportunity to be in one location, but helping many farmers around the world. Right now, I have been assisting. Just to give an example, in my first 3 years in FAO, I have been assisting countries around more than 60 countries, 60 different countries around the world in Latin America, Central Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. So it's really what I wanted to do, and it's a really big accomplishment for my professional and personal objectives, because right now I am able to help and assist different farmers and different locations, different regions, different countries with different climatic conditions, which is something that I was not, for example, it was my first time to assist farmers in Central Asia.
I'm curious now that you've had experience with farmers now from across the world, because it was just a couple of countries when you're first getting started. What are you finding is the common thread in terms of farmers' needs, farmers' concerns, now that you've had a chance to experience them from, various parts of the world?
Well, I think there are some similarities and some differences in different regions and different cultures. But just to give you some examples, what I have seen in the issues that are common between countries and regions are, for example, the lack of access to funds or funding to start the business for investment. Another one is the access to high quality extension services and also proper pest, diseases, soil, water, nutrient management. This is what I have seen that is like common in between different regions and countries. But there are also other more specifics depending on the region where you are. Which is in Latin America, for example, there seems to be technical capacities, a very good technical capacity, but the lack of investments by small-scale farmers. And in other regions, there might be more possibilities for private investments, but maybe these countries are located in the dry environments where crop production is more challenging. So I must say that some of the differences are related to the climate in each region. Tropical countries are more or less having the same issues, high temperatures, high humidities, and then the challenges are there, those, how to manage that. But if you go to the Middle East, North Africa, where you have maybe 100 millimeters of rain, there's another, and that's another issue. But in general, I think farmers need support, technical assistance, addressing how to manage climate, uh, how to improve genetic materials, seeds, high quality seeds, irrigation, water management, how to apply fertilizers, when to apply fertilizers, as well as cultural practices, plant densities, prunings, and of course the how to manage and control pests and diseases. This is pretty much what I have seen in between different regions and countries.
Obviously, those challenges lend themselves to being solved through a controlled environment agriculture, right? Because if you don't have the pests, if you can control or protect yourself from the elements, which you saw in your early days with, doing the greenhouses in Jamaica and El Salvador, like you get more control over your crops. And so I'm wondering what opportunities you see. And obviously, we think a lot about vertical farming here on this podcast and greenhouses and some of the hybrids we've seen as well. So in your time at FAO, like what have you seen that could be helpful in terms of the new technologies that are coming available to help with some of these challenges?
No, definitely. We are promoting protected cultivation systems in my division. Is the Plant Production and Protection Division in FAO. Since I arrived there, I have been trying to promote as much as possible the protected cultivation systems, and that includes greenhouses, net houses, hydroponic systems, vertical farming, and soilless culture in general. Because we know that increase the efficiency in the use of land and water, and also provides resilience against climate change, as well as increasing the efficiency in controlling the pests and diseases because you are in a controlled environment. I must say that we need these systems to be affordable for small scale farmers, and it will be very good to come up with systems that are low cost systems so farmers can afford to invest in this type of cropping systems without losing the efficiency. We have some projects, we have some experiences in the organization um, with the vertical farming in urban and peri-urban areas to deliver fresh produce, taking advantage of proximity to the cities. So, but also is very important to have technical assistance and training on crop production and protection under vertical farming or protected cultivation systems in general. And one of the main challenges is the finance for initial investment because we know that these type of systems are not cheap, but I think between the private sector and organizations, NGOs, and the research and academia, we should come out with something that is going to be efficient but also affordable. And this is what I guess our efforts need to be focused on in the next few years.
Do you feel that it's important that if you are going to have success and bringing the cost down, that's an important thing too, because I think a lot of the focus and attention when it comes to things like greenhouses and vertical farming technologies is all the investment going into building like these high-tech buildings that cost a lot of money to build and it costs a lot of money to develop. And, there is a learning curve because it's not something you can just give a open field farmer and then place him in a container farm or maybe a greenhouse is easier, but even like a vertical farm and assume that everything is going to be the same because there's a bit of a learning curve with understanding what some of that technology is and how to best use it for its maximum capacity. So do you see FAO looking to help create some of these systems or partner with existing companies and join forces together to help build these and make them more affordable?
Yes. Well, just to give an example of what some of the mistakes that I have seen in different countries is, for example, when the farmers want to bring systems from Europe, from the United States, from developed countries. So they buy the system. They want to install it in a tropical country where the conditions are totally different. And well, number one, those systems are expensive. Those systems are not adapted to the local conditions. And the people who is operating those systems don't have the training. So when you put all these things together, then you see after some time, you see them abandoned. And this is a very common thing because it's like a recipe. You are buying a recipe. Even they sell the substrates, they sell you the fertilizers, the seeds, everything. It's like a kit. So when you open the box, then you just have to start to install everything and that's it. But it doesn't work. And I have seen many mistakes and just so no, I think that approach it doesn't work. So what we want to do in the organization is to come up with adapted but affordable systems. And for that, right now with the new management, the organization is very open to have partnerships with the private sector. In the next years, we are expecting to have more partnerships and come up with adapted systems for small scale farmers in different countries. We know it's possible because we have done it before, as I have been mentioning you during this talk. So we have to do something similar, but we need the private sector, input suppliers. We need also research in academia to come together and come up with something that is going to be really efficient but profitable, because at the end of the day, we want farmers to make money to improve their livelihoods. And I can tell you that I have seen that. I have seen farmers growing crops under adapted systems, even low-cost systems.
Yeah.
And they are able to send the kids to school. They are able to pay for a better healthcare services, and they are able to buy better and more food. So it's possible. Yeah. And being in El Salvador, I have seen farmers that they prefer to continue working in the farm, invest, expand, instead of going to the United States as an immigrant.
And I'm sure that's something that gives you hope that there's a way forward. Like for the benefit of the listener and anyone who may not know about FAO, can you give some history about the organization? I mean, it's almost a testament to how eager you are to partner with them because you applied 3 times. So it's something that was a goal for you. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the origins of FAO, what the FAO's mission is as well.
Well, the FAO is, well, as you know, is the food and agriculture organization of the United Nations. It was funded in I'm not sure the year 1940 something, but it was mainly the main source of knowledge. Actually, in the past, if you wanted to know something about irrigation, soil management, or pest and disease management, the main source of for information was the FAO. Many publications, high quality publications, One of the things that the organization has is the transparency, because we are not selling, and we are not selling irrigation systems. We are not selling fertilizers. We are selling knowledge. Well, and this is important. So being able to work in everywhere in the world, I must say, because we have almost 200 members countries, that gives you the opportunity to really have a big impact. So our mission is to assist countries. We every time we have many different projects, and many of them are addressing the request from countries. And our mandate is to assist countries to address their own issues. Can be food security, food safety, food systems, crop production, crop protection. The organization is so big. We have a nutrition division because it's related to the food, economic, statistic. So it's a really big organization, I must say. Only in Rome, we have around 3,000 persons working for the organization, only in headquarters. So
Yeah.
it's really big. And in this decade, these days that we are trying to accomplish the SDGs by 2030, I think FAO plays a very important role.
What's interesting about what's happened over this past year is that I imagine for someone like you, seeing what COVID exposed in terms of supply chains, access to food, access to fresh food, food deserts, these were things that were top of mind for you like decades and years ago, long time. Like you knew that this was, you're preparing for hurricanes in Jamaica. And so, these are conversations you're having on a regular basis, like the impact of, natural events and things like pandemics. I imagine this is almost probably the way you think, like, how do we prepare for the worst, And so I'm wondering what your take has been, to see that almost like the rest of the world was like realizing, people who had not thought of this issue or problem are now thinking about it. And you don't have to convince them and you don't have to sell them on this idea because everybody knows how bad it can be. And so I'm wondering what that's done for you and how, if that's made your work easier or more interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think during this pandemic, the world has realized the importance of food and the supply. When you are eating your food and your plate, you never think about where that food is coming from. And I think now people is starting to think about, okay, I mean, how many efforts are made for your food to be in your plate? But also that includes transportation and this is what now they are talking about, the food systems, the importance of the food systems, which includes not only producers but also all the actors, including the consumers. So I think the importance of food and agriculture in general is now highlighted during these times. For us, I mean, in my case, it has been very difficult because not being able to travel to assist countries in the field and trying to do everything virtual is a challenge, because some things you can do virtual, but other things you can't. You have to go and see people in the field and do your job in the field. But anyway, hopefully soon everything is going to be going back to normal.
Well, it's really fascinating to hear your journey and where, I don't know if you knew where you were headed or where you would end up when you started this in El Salvador and all the different places it would take you and all the different people you would meet. And I imagine, working for an organization like FAO is probably something that you had on your mind for a long time because it feels like the place where you can have the greatest impact for the type of work that you want to do. So is there anything else on your, what they call the bucket list of like other organizations maybe you want to work with or things you want to get accomplished as you think about your future?
No, well, actually, I mean, at the beginning, I wanted to have some experience in the private sector, of course, because it's important. I don't think coming to FAO without having field and private sector experience is good. So after 15, 17 years working in the field with a private company, implementing field projects in different countries, I thought it was a good time to come to the organization and contribute. But yes, that was always in my mind, working in the development world and share as much as possible knowledge, experiences, and help to reduce poverty and hunger. That was my main objective coming from a country where we see people going to bed without having dinner. So
Yeah.
now I really feel happy to be where I am, and hopefully I will have opportunities to grow within the organization and have a bigger impact.
So as we wrap up, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story. Very inspirational. This is a very industry specific show. And so we talk to people who are making names at some of the biggest companies in vertical farming. I think what I'd like to ask is there an ask that you have for this community? You know, I'm sure you have a pretty good list of connections with some of the people at these companies, but there are people listening. And is there anything you can think of that would be helpful in terms of a connection or a conversation or a project you have coming up that you just want to share more news about?
No, I mean, we're having many projects in the organization, and some of them are including the vertical farming systems, but others are in general protected cultivation systems, including greenhouses, net houses. We have different projects right now we're going to implement projects in Vietnam, Uzbekistan, the Caribbean, other countries. We have had some experiences in the past. Vertical farming systems for strawberry in Gaza.
Wow.
We have some in Central America. We are having some experiences growing fodder in Syria, and low-cost hydroponic fodder in Sudan. So as you can see, we have many projects because you can imagine almost 200 country members having each country a lot of projects. But it will be good to use this opportunity and tell the community that we are now open for partnerships with the private sector, but also to tell that FAO's mandate is mainly to work with small scale farmers. So if you are talking about sustainability with the small scale farmers, we really need to come up with something that is going to be affordable, but also efficient and profitable. So what I would like to tell the community is that we are working in this direction. And if we can come up with something like addressing all these factors, it will be really good, because we don't want to lose efficiency because of the cost. But I know it's possible. We just need to bring a lot of people on to get different opinions, and also to tell the community that the systems have to be adapted to the local conditions, different climates, different type of systems. And normally all this research and investment are done in developed countries, not in the developing countries.
Yeah.
So we need more investment to do research in developing countries and try to address the issues that tropical countries or dry lands areas are having. Thank you.
So we'll make sure we get the word out when we publish this episode. So I want to thank you again for taking the time. I really enjoyed this conversation, and it was a nice surprise to be having a conversation with a fellow Salvadorian as well. So thank you for sharing your story. Where's the best place for listeners to connect, learn more about FAO, and to connect with you?
Well, we have the FAO website, and particularly my division is the Plant Production and Protection Division, where if you search on Google the Plant Production and Protection Division of FAO, you will find our website. And of course, you are always welcome to contact me directly.
And we'll make sure we include all that information in the show notes for this episode as well. So if you're listening, you'll be able to see that in the description for this. So thanks again, Melvin. Hope you have a fantastic weekend in Rome.
No, thanks to you, Harry. It was a pleasure to share my experiences. And yes, we are here. Whenever you come to Rome, let me know.
Thanks again to Melvin for sharing his story. Very inspiring. Learned a lot. Look into the work that FAO is doing if you haven't done so already. Full show notes available at verticalfarmingpodcast.com. Special thanks to our episode sponsors, Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. Ceres is creating sustainable growing environments by combining smart design, innovative technology, and dynamic partnerships. Learn more at ceresgs.com. That's CERESGS.com. Podcast production and marketing provided by Fullcast. Sign up for a free podcast brainstorm at fullcast.co/chat15. 2 important takeaways. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed at verticalfarmingpodcast.com, and there you'll also be able to sign up for our Vertical Farming Weekly newsletter. It's a recap of the weekly news in the world of vertical farming, and we also notify you of any new episodes as well. Next week, great conversation. My first with 2 co-founders. It's with Alexander Olesen and Graham Smith of Babylon Microfarms. If you're enjoying this show, please leave us a rating and a review at ratethispodcast.com/VFP. We'll be sure to read those out on future episodes. Until we meet again, here's to your health.
Thanks for listening. To read the full show notes for this episode, which includes any links mentioned in the episode, as well as a full show transcription, visit verticalfarmingpodcast.com. There, you can sign up for our email list to be notified when new episodes are published.